All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Andy Olen. Andy, welcome. Welcome to the show, man. It's so awesome to have you here.
Hey, Kevin, it's awesome to be here. Thank you. It's great to be with your audience and really excited about all the things we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Same here. And I'm going to give a little shout out to Andrew Ailman and the podcast guest platform. That's where you and I met. And I've met a few really awesome guests that we've had on the show through that platform. And so I just want to, give that shout out because what those guys are doing over there is pretty awesome and stuff. And so and
I will concur and second that. It is great and just a simple platform that brings people together that are either hosts and or guests
yeah,
on podcasts, and that way, Kevin, we get to meet each other. This is
that's
fantastic.
right.
So,
That's
thank you to
right.
them. Thank you to them.
And what's beautiful about platforms like that is, you and I mean, we've been talking for a few minutes before we hit the record button here, but man, it feels like you and I have known each other for a long time because of the way that we met. And that is just a real powerful thing and a testament to the power of relationships as well. And so very cool. Well, I'll tell you what I'd like to do, Andy, I have really been looking forward to this because you are somebody who has a very unique skill set, who places a really high value on relationships and has a very unique perspective on things too. And so what I'd like to do is kind of start off, we'll set a little bit of context and have you share a little bit about, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you're making in the world. And we'll start there, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. So, after 17 plus years in the healthcare, sales, marketing, leadership, general management roles in Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, what I realized was I had this wonderful experience of working with folks all around the world, sales teams, marketing teams, business teams, customers all around the world. And I also happened to be just around great people and we did great things together. So I had an opportunity to move up in the organization. And interestingly, every time I moved up another step, I got closer to a customer I wasn't as well orientated to or maybe prepared to engage with. And that was the
Okay.
shareholder customer. And there's a saying out there that as you move up in an organization, be careful because you're getting closer to the sun and you're getting closer to the owners of the company and having to sell and set expectations for them and deliver the financial results for them and allow them to guide Wall Street appropriately and the analyst community appropriately. And that's a great job. But I really missed being near the people who sold to the end users of our healthcare technologies, be it a coronary stent or a minimally invasive bladder scanning device or a diagnostic solution, a lab diagnostic solution. I missed working with the sales teams. I missed working with people that were selling goods, services, products to that end user customer. And in 2019, I decided I want to get back to that. So I said, it's time to step away from corporate America jobs that I've enjoyed so much and start my own business doing sales training, business training, leadership coaching, high performance development programs for those companies, but to be my own boss and to be an entrepreneur and to start my own small business. And that's where you find me today, 4 years in to being my own boss and helping out a lot of great teams and a lot of great people sell products, services, and negotiate with success with their customers.
Very cool. Very cool. So in 4 years into this, at this point, Andy, what's one of the what's an experience that just really sticks out for you that you've had in that 4 years that is just one of those things that you're like, that was really amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Let me take one of the trainings that I love to give, and it's presentation skills,
Okay.
specifically working with sales teams or business teams, presenting to customers or presenting within their boardroom. And you think, okay, if I'm a person who's going to be enrolled in this training, my company is going to bring me in with 9 other people, so 10 of them in a room, and I got to get ready and I got to do a 5-minute presentation. And this guy, Andy's there, and I got to talk about my company. I do this all the time. I don't really need the help. And what's really awesome to see, and just it's so cool. I say to myself, I'm so lucky to be able to do this, is they come in, they give their presentations, and the way that we orchestrate this is that someone presents for 5 minutes and then the whole team gives feedback. And so it's
Okay.
an active presenting session, it's an active listening session. But you would be amazed, Kevin, at the esprit de corps, the team spirit that is formed when people are all vulnerable in front of their colleagues, when they're supporting and giving each other feedback. They bond with each other. And that's really, there are three big takeaways from presentation skills training that just really warms me every time. And it's a reminder for me of why I built my business, why I'm doing what I love to do. And that's really being a teacher, someone who's sharing best practices, but really seeing people excel is when they stand up there, they learn how to be a more confident presenter, how to be a better communicator. Two, they form this wonderful team bond with other talented people within their organization they didn't know very well beforehand. And three, they really fall in love with their company a little bit deeper than they were before because they're talking about things that their company's doing or how they're proud of what their company and their engagement in their company, how proud they are of that. And they remember why they're there. And so for me, it's this win-win-win outcome that is really such a reminder of why I became my own boss, so I could do things just like this. And it happens on a monthly basis because I get to be around really
Mhm.
talented people who are excited about developing their skills and building these bonds.
That's awesome. Wow. I gotta imagine that's pretty incredibly rewarding for you to be able to have that kind of experience and that kind of impact. So good for you, man. That's awesome, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that have completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Andy, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And the answer is yes, and the answer is also plural. It's persons.
Okay.
And it's really interesting how people have played a very unique and powerful role in shaping my career, my business, my outlook over the course of the last 2 decades, primarily. And so, the first name that I wanted to share is a guy named Jim Newport. And Jim is a very seasoned executive within healthcare. He's now retired. He's been retired for many years. Lives in the Bay Area, and Jim worked at a company called Guidant Corporation, which is no more. It got bought and sort of split up many years ago. But Jim was also the MBA recruiter for Guidant Corporation at my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
Jim led the delegation to come in and recruit business students for interns and then for full-time hiring as well. And I met Jim at the recruiting session, and I didn't have any corporate background. I was lucky to sort of get into business school. I grew up in technology and running political campaigns, so a very different background. And I said to Jim, no matter what, I want to interview for a job. I may be terrible at it, but I want to interview for an
Mhm.
internship at Guidant. And he gave me the last spot on the interview day and said, I'll make extra time for you just because I love your passion and let's see what we can do. I got so prepared and so ready to go for that. And the interview, thankfully, went very well with him. And he was a big supporter and champion in opening that door. He allowed me the time to interview, that 15 minutes, and that's all I needed to springboard my career into medical device and go through the internship, get a full-time job. He and I worked together when I moved to California for a while and has always been there as a mentor, as a leader, as someone with perspective, a great sense of humor, and also being very vulnerable to share his own experiences of what worked, what didn't work. But if it wasn't for him opening that door just a little bit and
Yeah.
believing and giving me a chance, I would never have started down a pathway in healthcare medical device, which has really shaped me. It's also shaped my business because probably half of my business revenue and income comes from my network in healthcare, where I'm still serving and working for many of those companies in a very different capacity now,
Very
but
cool.
still very connected into that network that Jim Newport opened the
Yeah.
door so gracefully for me many years ago.
Wow. Very awesome. And I love what you shared about that. you today in your own business are serving many of the people that you met through that network years ago. And that's been my experience as well. That I today am serving people that I've known for years, long before I ever started doing what I do now. And what a testament to the power of relationships. I didn't want to cut you off. Sorry, I want to make sure.
No, Kevin, I'll double down on that and say you're absolutely right. And I was thinking about it as you were just talking that, everyone knows how powerful a force in the financial arena compound interest is. And if you just save a little bit, a year after year after year, if you start young, the compounding effect will make you a multimillionaire if you've done it fairly decent over time. The same is true and can be applied to the equity that's put in and the return on relationship
Yeah.
investments as well. And I don't think about relationships with people as financial transactions, but if you nurture and really hold dear those relationships with people in your life, and then you extend yourself to other people, the multiplying effect and what it can do for you. I'm a good example of that, where I could step out of corporate America at a very, very senior role and say goodbye to that equity package, that base salary, that bonus structure, and say, oh, I got 3 kids about to go into high school. This may not be the right time to do it, but to have enough belief in myself and have enough of a network for my relationships where I was welcomed back as a service provider within the healthcare environment, literally months after I stepped out of it, because those relationships
Yeah.
compounded, multiplied, and remained very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know that there's a couple other people that you want to honor too, and I want to make sure we give you
Yeah,
the opportunity to do that as well. So we'll just keep rolling, Andy.
perfect. Sounds good. When I was a very junior in medical device, worked at Abbott Laboratories, and we were getting ready to launch a drug-eluting stent, so a coronary drug-eluting stent, sort of plumbing for your heart arteries. And we were late to market, but we had a really good product. And I was doing some special work to get the strategy ready, get the marketing plans ready, the sales plans ready, the go-to-market strategy going in the organization. I really wanted to be a sales manager to launch this product out there. And Sam Conaway and Dave Pacitti, two great mentors of mine at Abbott, and also Dave at Siemens, those two individuals said, Andy, you know what? We know that you want to be a sales manager. That will come at some point, but we really want you to be the marketing manager leading this drug-eluting stent launch. And I kept thinking to myself, no, I have a idea in my head. I want to go to sales. I probably can make more money doing that, selling this product. And what they kept saying to me was, one, we're going to support you 100%. So we believe in you to do this. Two, they said, you're going to be one of one marketing manager versus one of 23 sales managers. And when we do a great job with this launch, you're going to be the first one who's going to get a look for the next opportunity, because you're differentiating yourself. You're unique, and we're going to team with you together through this. And through the ups and downs of that launch, ultimately a great, great success. Sam Conaway, Dave Pacitti were there. They honored their words. They sent me off actually to Canada to be national sales manager in Canada. So I did get my sales gig. It happened to be running all of Canada, which was one of the best experiences of my life. And then on to general management roles, Canada, Latin America. But Dave and Sam, who are actually both good friends with each other, became this wonderful support system for me, and just really unbelievable leaders at a critical time in my career to learn, to launch, and to thrive as well.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So they got they suggested you kind of go in a little bit different direction than you wanted to go, but
Correct.
yet they were like, "Hey, we got your back. We're going to be right here with you alongside. We're going to help guide you and all that. And when we get done with this, we'll still be riding with you and stuff."
That's right. And they took a risk. I'd never launched a product before. And so
Uh-huh.
Jim Newport, right? The theme of this is that people took took a risk with me.
Yeah.
And it was really important for me and to honor their risk with my effort, with my engagement, with
Yes.
my
Yes.
my thirst to do this well and to make them proud. They're very senior, very talented people, and they could have put 100 other people into this marketing
Yep.
role that probably on paper would have been more qualified. But there was something, I guess, that they saw and belief in me that gave them the confidence to say, "We want Andy to do this." Their vote went a long way, and their ongoing support, not only through that job, but my next many jobs, really, really made the difference. And to this day, that support is still there. It's just very different now. I did Sam Conaway's company, Boston Scientific. That's been a client of mine. So again, another example of how that support continued on
Yeah.
as I transitioned to becoming an entrepreneur as well. But for those who have taken risks for me, Jim, Sam, Dave, that probably was the greatest accelerator and confidence builder throughout the sort of the early to middle stages of my career.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So I do have a question I want to ask, but before I
Yeah,
ask it, I want to make sure, was there anybody else that you wanted to honor, Andy, or because I want to make sure we could do that first before I
sure.
do any kind of follow-up.
Yeah, let me honor one more person because I think
Okay.
when you have success in a corporate job, and maybe this will be helpful for your listeners who are thinking about what they do next, or maybe a change of scenery, they're in a corporate role and they want to step out and maybe do their own thing, and really there, that decision is a very personal decision, and so therefore it involves your family. And so my wife, Melanie Clark, I'd like to honor and say thank you to, because when I was at arguably sort of the peak of my corporate America career, I said to her, I'm not happy doing this. She's like, go find what you're happy. I found it. I said, this is the business I'm going to start. And without hesitation and without thought of anything but my own happiness, she said, go for it. I got it. No problem. And so when you make this very personal decision of going out on your own, having that support structure around you is super important and super enabling as well. And to this day, she's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I believe. And so it's completely frictionless. Said a different way, it's 1,000% supportive and loving. And so sometimes we think of the people that have created our success as the business mentor, but sometimes it's the person you're closest to in life, in your personal life, and
That's
that
right.
person is a super enabler.
Amen to that. And I have my wife Lisa is just this amazing woman that has always believed in me too. And I remember, conversations that we had earlier on in my entrepreneurial journey as I was figuring things out. And I can tell you, Lisa, she definitely didn't marry me for my money. I'll tell you that. Because I had a lot to figure out when her and I first met, and but I'll tell you, having that support when the evidence isn't necessarily there. I mean, yeah, I had, I used to be a commercial fisherman in Alaska. And I think about what you said, my first job. I live here in Washington State, 40 miles
Mhm.
north of Seattle. And my first job I got fishing in Alaska, I went down to Seattle to Fisherman's Terminal and I just hit the docks. And I found out that the captains on the boat, they do not hire off of the dock. They just don't. They hire through referrals from guys they've already worked with on the boat that have told their buddies what it's like and all that. But this one guy, John Waddell, he ended up giving me a chance. And I still remember the day he called me and he's like, Kev, how fast can you be down here to Seattle to the boat? And I said, I can be there in 2 hours. He's like, well, get your stuff packed. Come on down here. When you get here, come up to the wheelhouse and talk to me. And when I got there, he told me, he's like, Kev, he's like, man, I've never done this before. He's like, I've never hired off the dock. He's like, he's like, you're in for an experience. He's like, unlike anything you've ever experienced. And he's like, this is definitely going to be work. And he's like, and I am just praying that this works out for both you and I, and and I like Andy, I was so appreciative to John for just giving me a shot. And I'm just like, man, I'm not going to let this guy down. I'm going to bust my butt for this guy. And I did. And that, that one job turned into a 7-year career that I worked on Alaska's Bering Sea as a fisherman and
Wow.
stuff. And so, it's really important to have these people in our lives that just believe in us. And my wife Lisa, like your wife, same way. She just believed in me. She knew I was a hard worker. We knew that, but this was a new thing. This was
Yeah,
a new endeavor that we didn't have that proof, so to speak. It was a lot of it was just on faith that we're going to figure this out, and we did, and you did too. And so,
absolutely. Yeah. There are a lot
kudos.
of parallels between your getting the call to join the team on the boat and John's call to you, and then Jim's call to me to interview and to say yes to an internship. And then it's up to us to prove it. I think that's the other side of it. So they may open the door, but then we got to perform. And if
That's
we
right.
perform, then that compounding really starts to take place where they say, Kevin can do more. Let's have him do
Yeah.
this. Andy can do more. Let's have him do that. But that initial yes, or that initial invitation or belief, it just it reminds me frequently, I got to pay that back to other people. I got to do the same, because look how powerful that is. And again, I'll go back to the analogy of, if compound interest is the most powerful force in finance, then building great relationships like this and paying it forward and building that relationship equity is probably the most important thing in building a career, a business, and quite frankly, enjoying life.
Yeah. 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 Well, so Andy, I've got one follow-up questions I'd like to ask you. And if you look at these people that you've mentioned and that you've honored, and you look at these relationships, and you look at over the years of the relationships you've had with these people, and just pick like, one person where something happened as a result of that relationship that allowed you, or you and them together, to make a really big impact. And hands down, that would have never happened if not for your relationship with that person.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of stories there. I'll go back to Sam, and I'll talk about a professional situation here, a huge
Okay.
impact that Sam Conaway made. Sam, uh, his first couple jobs when he was a teenager and young adult was at the Washington Hospital Center, which is a prestigious East Coast based hospital. But he didn't have a very prestigious job there. He was catching laundry in the basement of the Washington Hospital Center. The linens, the gowns, everything would come down. He'd have to catch it. And you can only imagine sort of what trauma could come from catching, hospital linens. And then he'd organize them and send them off to get cleaned and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until he got a delivery, I think he made up into the cardiac cath lab, where he was talking to a physician who said, if you're interested in this stuff, we have a program and we may be able to teach you how to be a tech. And he
Wow.
said yes, and it
Wow.
kept compounding. Now he leads Boston Scientific's, one of their largest divisions in interventional cardiology. And, I had this moment with him that it just really, I think, was so foundational for me in so many different ways, where, it's interesting. I was he and I both, I didn't know he was going to be on my flight. We had just finished some business meetings in Chicago in the same room around the same people, and we were just getting to know each other. But he was going back to San Francisco. So was I. We were both living out there, and we happened to be on the same plane.
Okay.
And I actually got an upgrade to go to first class. Ironically, he should have gotten the upgrade way before me. He was much more senior, but my points, my status got me the upgrade. But we found a way, instead of me going up to the front to sit in first class, I said, no. It's 5 hours. If I can find a way to sit next to Sam and just get to know him and talk to him. And so we found a way to sit next to each other, sort of buried in coach. But it was one of those 5-hour experiences where we just got to know each other. And that was so the beginning, the catalytic moment to opening up. Then what I said earlier was when he gave me that chance to be the marketing manager, and then he said yes to me later on to be one of my first clients in my new business that I formed, and had enough belief. But it came from this very odd moment. He told me that story about the Washington Hospital Center, about how he persevered. And what I found, Kevin, was I realized what the values were that drove Sam, and those values matched mine. And when you find that value match with somebody, it's just an instant bonding. I
Yeah.
reached out to Sam about 3 months ago, just had a question for him. And within literally a minute and a half, he connected me with someone and said, I believe in Andy, until the end of time, more or less. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that same energy that he had for me 20 years ago, he still has for me today. And I think it all came back to that serendipitous moment of being on the same plane at the same time and then making the decision, I'm not going to go sit in first class on my own. I
Yeah.
want to sit next to Sam because I really want to get to know him. And it was just so memorable. And he probably doesn't remember that like I do, but when you're a more junior person, it's like the biggest thing that happens to you. And we went on to win market leadership in 90 days with our drug eluting stent, and that became known as one of the best medical device product launches in the industry of all
Wow.
time. So that was a big moment. I won the chairman's award at Abbott from then chairman and CEO Miles White, which was the most prestigious award in the corporation. And so he unlocked, just through that 4.5 hour flight, ORD to SFO, Chicago to San Francisco,
Yep. Yep.
and that choice to sit next to him and engage with him really opened the door to me being able to do that. And then probably also having the confidence to start my own business, saying, you know what would Sam want me to do? He'd say, go for it, Andy, just go do it.
Mhm. Wow. That's really powerful. That's really powerful. Wow, wow, wow. Well, Andy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. For anybody listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Andy. I like what Andy stands for. How can they find more information on you and what you guys are doing, Andy?
Absolutely. So the Sales Warrior Within is my podcast. So
Okay.
I think, Kevin, we're at 100, episode 191 with you. So congratulations on that huge volume. That's not easy to do. I'm at about 110 on mine. So I'm
Nice.
behind you by about 80 or 90. So I know what it takes just to keep doing this and the love you have to have for it. So thank you for that. But the Sales Warrior Within is my podcast, and it's with great guests and also my own insights on how to bring forward and empower the sales warrior within. All of the people I mentioned, from Jim to Sam to Dave, my wife Melanie, they're actually all salespeople or marketers by training and by profession, but they're all great at building relationships and really connecting, communicating, and cooperating with others, both in their personal life and their professional life. And so we talk a lot about simple practices that people can use to express the sales warrior within, to create big and monumental results. So that's one area you can find me. And of course, my website, andyolen.com, ANDYOLEN.com, for all the offerings that I have within the business.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, once again, really appreciate you having the conversation today, Andy, and just sharing from your heart and just honoring, these people that have had not just a profound impact on your life, but what there's been so many more lives impacted as a result of these relationships here. And any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a
Yeah.
wrap?
I'll just double click on what you said, is that for all the people that I mentioned, they made me a lot better in what I did when
Yeah.
I was in corporate America. For me then to make that transition and have that support to go do my own gig and actually to give back really the gifts that they gave me. And so last and finally, one of the things that I did when I started my own business was I wrote an offer letter to myself, and it was to me, to be signed by me when I was ready to jump out. And it really just sort of had the job description, and it had the credo of the business, but there was also a promise and commitment in there that I made, is that the world has been good to me and the people in my life have been great to me. They've given me the ability to do this. Now give it back. And so there's a good percentage of my time and energy that goes to efforts to help veterans, help transitioning veterans from military to their personal life. So if people want to look into some of the work I do to give back, please go check out the Honor Foundation. And it's a great cause to help special operating military guys move from special ops over into the
Oh,
next
wow.
chapter of their career. And so all of the thanks that I could give to the mentors and to the people that have helped me, I thought the best way I can honor and thank them is to give it back, both through my business
Yeah.
and also through the volunteer efforts that I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. That's really awesome. That's really awesome. Well, Andy, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Really, really appreciate it.
It's been great being here, Kevin. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.